in the western city of Homs. Coffins draped in Syrian flags lined the streets outside the Homs military hospital as a military band played somber music and soldiers saluted. On Thursday, several drones attacked a graduation ceremony in the academy's courtyard where families had gathered with the new officers. The Syria's Ministry of Health said at least 89 people had been killed, including 31 women and 5 children. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, which monitors the Syrian conflict, put the toll at above 120. Syria has declared 3 days of national mourning. There have been no claims of responsibility for the attack, while Syria's ministries of defense and foreign affairs and expatriates blamed what they described as terrorist groups without providing specifics. They promised to respond with full force. Away from that, the U.S. has sent roughly 1.1 million bullets seized from Iran last year to Ukraine. The U.S. Central Command CENTCOM, which oversees operations in the Middle East, says the rounds were confiscated from a ship bound for Yemen in December. Reports say Ukraine's Western allies had recently warned that their production lines were struggling to keep up with the rate at which Ukraine was using ammunition. Meanwhile, CENTCOM says the Iranian rounds were transferred to Ukraine on Monday. It added the ammunition was 7.62 mm caliber used in Soviet-era rifles and light machine guns. While the number is significant, it represents a small percentage of the hundreds of millions of rounds already provided by allies to Ukraine, as the U.S. has already provided more than 200 million bullets and grenades. Meanwhile, a Russian strike in northeastern Ukraine has killed at least 51 people. Officials say the attack happened in the village of Roza near Kupiansk in the Kharkiv region. According to reports, villagers from Roza had gathered in a local cafe for a wake following the death of a resident before the attack occurred. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has accused Russia of genocidal aggression. Moving on now, France has said that it would start withdrawing its troops from Niger this week after a falling out with the post-coup regime, which insists the exit be carried out in accordance with its conditions. The announcement by the French army follows weeks of tensions between Paris and Niger's new military rulers who seized power in July 26. President Emmanuel Macron, who had sought to make a special ally of Niger, announced on September 24 the withdrawal of 1,400 French troops from the country by the end of the year, complying with a demand by the new regime in Niamey. Macron said that military cooperation with Niger was over. At least 40 people have reportedly died in flash floods inundating India's northeast as army teams plotted helicopter rescues for more of the thousands stranded in the deluge. Reports say violent torrents struck the remote state of Sikkim after the sudden bursting of a high-altitude glacial lake near India's borders with Nepal and China. The climate scientists warn that similar disasters will become an increasing danger across the Himalayas as global temperatures rise and ice melts. Downstream search and rescue teams recovered more bodies as the waters cut a swathe through the countryside towards the Bay of Bengal. Moving on now, Donald Trump has endorsed staunch conservative Congressman Jim Jordan's bid to become the next Speaker of the House of Representatives. Trump today said he will be a great Speaker of the House and has his complete and total endorsement. Jordan, aged 59, was one of the first Republicans to join the race to replace Kevin McCarthy, who was ousted by members of his own party last week. It was the first time in history that a speaker has lost a no-confidence vote. In a post on his social media platform Truth Social, Trump said Jordan had been a star long before making his very successful journey to Washington. Jordan is one of the most vocal defenders of the former president in Congress. The hardline conservative from Ohio, currently serving his 9th term, has also led the impeachment inquiry into President Joe Biden. Moving on now, lawyers for former U.S. President Donald Trump say his attempts to cast doubt on the 2020 election fell within his official duties as president and are not subject to criminal prosecution. In a new filing, the lawyers argued that the claims were at the heart of his official responsibilities. The lawyers have asked a judge to dismiss the charges against him for alleged election interference. Separately, they have asked for a delay in his classified documents case. Trump's attorneys have asked for the documents trial in which the former president is accused of improperly handling sensitive files to be held after the 2024 presidential election. And in a case in New York, Trump's attorneys requested the dismissal of 34 felony charges of falsifying business records. The charges relating to the 2020 election were brought in Washington, D.C. by Special Prosecutor Jack Smith, who says Trump interfered with the normal transfer of presidential power after his legal challenges to the vote were unsuccessful. Meanwhile, Trump has said that the charges against him and all of the other legal cases against him and his companies are politically motivated. In a separate development, the U.S. has announced it's resuming delivery of food aid for refugees in Ethiopia after a 5-month interruption. This comes after the authorities in Addis Ababa agreed to step away from distributing the supplies. A statement by U.S. aid has said reforms made by the Ethiopian government that led to the resumption of the aid include strengthening monitoring and oversight, as well as increasing commodity tracking. However, food aid for around 20 million Ethiopians currently in desperate need of humanitarian support remains paused. Moving on now, President Joe Biden is under attack from both Republicans and Democrats after his administration announced new border wall construction in Texas. Biden said he was unable to stop the work because the funding was signed off while Donald Trump was president. Members of his Democratic Party said walls did not work, while rival Republicans accused him of hypocrisy. According to reports, some 20 miles of barriers will be built in a sparsely populated stretch of the Rio Grande Valley while campaigning for president in 2020. Biden promised he would not build another foot of wall if elected. He said it was not a serious policy solution. But his administration used its sweeping executive powers to waive more than 24 federal laws, including some that are designed to protect wildlife, to allow more barriers to be built along the U.S.-Mexico border in southern Texas. In a notice announcing these waivers, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas said there was an acute and immediate need for the construction. In a separate development, Pakistan has ordered all unauthorized Afghan asylum seekers, an estimated 1.7 million people, to leave the country by November. A spike in attacks along the two countries' border, which Islamabad blames on Afghanistan-based operatives, has escalated tensions this year. It has also fueled resentment in Islamabad, which has announced a crackdown on illegal migrants. The Taliban government urged Pakistan to rethink its alleged unacceptable move. Afghanistan's rulers have repeatedly denied providing refuge for militants who target Pakistan. After a break, Kenya deploys contingent of specialized police units to contain escalating communal clashes in western town of Sondu, along border of Kericho and Kisumu counties. To stay with us for details on this and more right after the break. Thanks for staying tuned. Now, Kenyan President William Ruto will be traveling to China later this month to seek a $1 billion loan to pay for stalled road projects. His deputy Rigathi Gachagua told newsmen that many contractors had abandoned projects around the country as they were not getting paid for their work. He said, while Kenya was already heavily in debt to China, the president would ask for an extra $1 billion while seeking a longer repayment period for the money that is already owed. Reports say that Kenya owes China more than $8 billion from loans mostly contracted during the former government under President Uhuru Kenyatta for infrastructure projects. Meanwhile, Kenya has deployed a contingent of specialized police units to contain the escalating communal clashes in western town of Sondu along the border of Kericho and Kisumu counties. According to reports, 7 people have died and several others displaced in the fresh clashes. Interior Minister Kithure Kindiki said that local security chiefs from both Kisumu and Kericho would be transferred following the clashes. Now in business, Egypt's foreign dollar bonds have tumbled after ratings agency Moody's downgraded the country's credit rating deeper into junk territory, ramping up the pressure on the cash-strapped nation as it heads into elections in December. On Thursday, Moody's moved Egypt down 1 notch to CAA1 from B3, 7 levels into junk, citing the country's worsening debt affordability. The country is in the throes of a bruising economic crisis with record inflation, crushing government debt, and a plunging currency that has driven more of its citizens to seek risky routes out of the country. All of Egypt's sovereign dollar bonds slid lower, with most trading at their lowest since May. Egypt has downgraded its pound currency to half its former value in the year to March. However, on Thursday, International Monetary Fund (IMF) Director Kristalina Georgieva told Bloomberg that Egypt will continue to bleed reserves unless it devalues again. Georgieva also told Bloomberg there had been constructive engagements with Egypt, adding that she expected more systematic work between the IMF team and the government in the coming weeks. Egyptians are expected to go to the polls to select their president on December 10 and through 12. Away from that, 4 Palestinians have been killed in separate incidents in the occupied West Bank, 3 at the hands of Israeli soldiers and 1 by an Israeli settler, according to the Israeli military and medical officials. 2 of the men were killed near Shufa village in the Tulkum area, Israel's military said on Thursday, adding that a gunfight had erupted after soldiers identified a suspicious vehicle and the 2 men shot at the settler. The military said soldiers engaged and after exchanges of fire, the 2 terrorists were neutralized. Israeli forces regularly raid Tulkum. In a separate development, Typhoon Koinu has lashed southern Taiwan, killing 1 person and injuring hundreds of others, while also leaving localized damage. The Category 4 typhoon made landfall on Taiwan's Hengchun Peninsula on Thursday morning, causing flight suspensions and the closure of work and schools for millions of people. Flying glass during the typhoon killed 1 person in the central city of Taichung, according to Taiwan's fire department. Strong winds battered some buildings and trees, while social media pictures from Orchard Island off the southeast coast showed cars blown off roads, fishing boats sunk in the harbor, and smashed school windows. A weather tracking station on Orchard Island, home to 5,000 people, recorded Taiwan's strongest wind in 126 years as the typhoon hit on Wednesday evening, according to Taiwan's official central media. A total of 46 international flights were cancelled, according to the Transport Ministry. Ferries to outlying islands were also stopped, and Taiwan's 2 main domestic airlines were called off. Most flights that were scheduled for Thursday. High-speed rail connecting northern and southern Taiwan followed regular operations. Moving on now, Jeff Bezos, the founder of the online retail giant Amazon, is about to expand his interests in space. He is set to launch 2 prototype satellites for a broadband mega constellation he calls Project Kuiper. Bezos is planning to put up more than 3,200 spacecraft in the next few years to deliver internet connections to anywhere on the globe. He hopes to challenge Elon Musk's Starlink, which already offers satellite internet in many countries. The 2 small satellites launching on Friday, CubeSat-1 and CubeSat-2, will trial the necessary technology. They will be carried into a 500 kilometers high orbit by an Atlas V rocket. Moving on now, Taylor Swift's Eras Tour concert film has become a box office blockbuster. a week before hitting cinemas. Its distributor AMC says global advance ticket sales have topped $100 million, adding demand has been incredible from the moment it was first announced. The firm says it took less than 24 hours for the movie to beat its record for the highest one-day sales. That makes it the most profitable concert film in history, overtaking Justin Bieber's Never Say Never, the Canadian singer's movie, which mixed documentary. Elsewhere, U.S. star Jason Derulo has been accused of sexual harassment in a legal case launched by a singer who was signed to his record label. Emma Gibson, who was offered a recording contract with Derulo's imprint, is now suing him, alleging he ended their working relationship after she denied his sexual advances. Gibson told media she has been left traumatized by the experience. Derulo has denied the claims, calling them completely false and hurtful. Gibson, aged 25, filed her complaint against Derulo, aged 34, on Thursday in Los Angeles Superior Court, saying he maliciously promised her success, then denied her the opportunity. She alleges quid pro quo sexual harassment, breach of contract, and intimidation and violence, among other complaints. And with that, we wrap up our package for you on Worldview today. Do ensure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtv.ng. My name is Xavier Roberts, reaching you live from Uyo, the capital city of Akwa Ibom. And you've been watching Worldview on Spectrum TV. Do enjoy the rest of our programming today. Bye for now.